Okay guys, so this is going to be a series of videos. We're just going to start off with the first one here, which just shows you through the just guides you through the setup of actually getting your first HTML document set up and linked with a style sheet, and then we'll start going into actually how to build the elements. So the first thing I want to do really is let's just go back from our slides from last week. So let's have a look here. So this is the project we're working on, the Kytte project, and I just want to go through a quick rundown again on the process just so we're familiar. So the first thing you want to do is just get familiar with the design. So inspect it, get familiar with what the elements are, get really familiar with what you're building, and that's the process of what we did when we printed the design out and went through and just drew rectangles around where each element was going to be. Because the way the web browser interprets elements is always in blocks, so it's just important we get a good hierarchy of seeing how the page is structured. And that's going to help you a lot when you start building those elements. So that's getting familiar with the design, and then we're going to go through, which is what the setup is, what this video is about today, which is the setup of your site and your files. So that's linking up the HTML to CSS, and then we'll go through to actually building the code structure in HTML. And then once you're comfortable with that, extracting some more images out of the PSD, and then include them in the structure, and then you start doing all your CSS styles and layout. So that's all the positioning, all the colors and so forth. And in the very end, that's when we actually start putting a little bit of extra CSS there for media queries, and that will customize it for mobile devices. So, all right, let's get stuck straight into it. So if you go from the folder you guys got from the server in the labs, you'll see this is the folder you get set up here. We got some files here, the PSD, got the copy and so forth, and a few CSS files that are left over from last year, so don't worry too much about that. So let's open up the Kytte desktop PSD. And don't worry too much about the fonts right now, not too important. So this is the file we're working from. So let's have a little look. Alright, so yeah, just get familiar with the layers and so forth, what we're working with, and we'll be able to extract those out. The first one we'll be doing is getting out that logo, but just get the file open up in Photoshop so it's ready to go. Okay, so let's just hide that for now. So the first thing we want to do is create a new folder for our project. So let's go on the desktop, let's create a new folder, let's call it Kytte like that. And what we could do is we want to open this up in Atom. So I've got Atom already open, and you can just go into Atom itself, and it's got a blank document there. We just go File, Open, on desktop, there it is, open the folder. And the reason we open the folder is because on the left hand side here, we can have it ready to go, so we can right click and create files. You can also do it as well by, when you've created the folder, you can drag it down onto Atom and just let go on Atom on the icon there on the Mac. On Windows, you just do it by the file open. So once we've got set up with our folder, we can now create our first file, which will be our index.html. So let's go index.html. Cool. So the reason it's called index is because on web servers like Apache, they see this file. So if you had like one called index, one called about or contact, it'll always go to it looks for the first file called index and always puts that up as the home page. So that's why the home page is always called index. Pretty simple. So we want to start putting in the doc type and all that kind of stuff, like you would have learned from the homework, but we want to save a bit of time here, so let's just open up a file I've already created called HTML starter, and this is basically the stuff that we don't want to type out every time. So let's copy that, close it, and let's paste it into our index.html. Cool, so that's the basic setup for our index, and the next file we want to create is, so we right click on a folder here, go new file, I'm going to call this styles.css. So just to recap, the HTML file always has the tag, which is like this, and that's basically developing the structure. That's the HTML markup language. So sometimes we just call this the markup, which is paragraphs, headings, div tags, and all that kind of stuff. And then the styles.css file is going to have all the style information. It's like background color red, different font sizes, and so forth. So that's those two files set up. And the third file we want to do, and I'll show you this. Just go to Chrome here. If you just go to Google and search for Normalize, and it's American spelling, or is it there? .css. And this is a little handy CSS file we're going to download, which is basically going to reset and normalize all the default styles that a browser puts in. Because you see, when you're viewing a website that has no style information, no CSS whatsoever, the browser, so like Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, they're going to put in their own basic defaults, like their own little bits of padding, certain font choices, and all that kind of thing. And unfortunately, they're not all the same. They're all a little bit different. It's a teeny bit different. So this file here basically brings them all into line so they're the same. So it gives us a very good, a stable platform to start from. So we don't have all these differences when we're checking Internet Explorer and Chrome. They don't all look different all over the place. So this is a very important file to download. So instead of just clicking it, we're going to Option or Alt click to install Mac or PC, and that's going to download it for us. Cool, there it is. So let's go to our project folder here. There's our 2 files we created. And now we want to go to our, oh, no, not that one. To our downloads, there it is, Normalize, drag it in there. Awesome, cool. And you'll see it popped up on there as well. And don't worry about this .ds store on a Mac. It's just a little bit of metadata that the Mac's put on there. We sometimes call it Mac poo. Just gets left over. Don't worry about it. It's just a hidden file there. So okay, so now we've got those 3 files there. We want to. Our HTML file doesn't know they're there. It has no idea they even exist. So what we need to do is link them up to this file. So if you guys remember how to do that, we want to go use the link tag. And the relevant, so the rel, this is going to be a style sheet. And it's going to ask us where actually is this file, which is the href tag attribute. We're going to say here this is called normalize.css. And the type is text/CSS. Cool. And just to recap that, really make sure you spell everything exactly right. So we had a few people where they might have called this like ref, for example, and you'll go through to Chrome, you'll be testing it and it's not working, you're pulling your hair out, all that kind of stuff. So you really want to make sure that's spelled exactly correctly. Same with this style sheet and href, and you're using the quotes and ending them and so forth, because it's just things like that which, you know, if they're not done properly, they're not going to link up, and you could be sitting there scratching your head wondering why it's not working. So that's bringing our normalized CSS, and we bring this one in first to set everything to the standard defaults. So we've got everything's playing from the same playing field, should I say. So we bring that in first, and then we want to copy that line, go underneath, paste it in again, and we're going to change this now. So we bring in the second file, which is our styles.css. And again, make sure it's spelled exactly how you spelled it over here. So if it's called styles, make sure that's styles, or style, whichever one is going to be done. So we've got those 2 linked up. So I'm going to save that. Oh, and just a little word, by the way, is when you have made a change to a file, you notice this little blue dot up here? Always keep an eye on that. Whenever you made changes, the browser is not going to refresh them, not going to show them until you save the file. So whenever you made a change here, always be going, you know, Command S on the Mac or Control S on the PC. But yeah, a few times you'll be making a change, you'll go to your browser and check it and have no idea why it's not working. You probably just haven't saved your file. So always keep your eye on that blue dot up there. Just get rid of that. Okay, so Command S to save that one. And in order to figure out if this is actually working, we want to be able to put some actual style information, because let's just put the title here. We'll just call this Kytte web design, like that. Command S to save. Let's just open this HTML file up in Chrome. You'll see we've got nothing, which is to be expected because we haven't done any markup yet. We've got the title at the top there, but that's about it. So let's see, the first one to do is make sure we've actually got some style information coming through. So let's go to our styles.css and let's do styles for the whole body page. And just remember, the body, anything that's inside this tag, these tags here, the body tag, that's what actually shows up on the browser. Okay. Anything inside the head, this is all information for the browser to let them know all these files that link to it and a whole bunch of different stuff. But basically, anything you want to display on your site has to go inside this tag here, the main body tag. It's the big daddy of the whole thing. Okay. So let's pop over to our styles and let's just go background red. You could also go background color. They're actually shorthands. But yeah, we'll just go background red for now. I'm going to go Control S to save. Go back to Chrome, refresh. Boom, awesome. That's the first thing you want to do. The reason you do that is to test it, to make sure you actually got these things linked up. The last thing you want to do is get through, start doing a bunch of coding, and wonder why it's not working. So it's important to do that. Okay, so save that. So the next thing we need to do is start doing our markup, which is our HTML tags and our structure, and we'll start going through bit by bit and doing the styles along with it. And we'll do that for the next video.